Everybody, now they come to live, spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Haha. It's just Linga. Hi, Linga, Linga Longa. I like seeing that Linga Longa. So cool. How are you today? Hopefully good. Um, so for those of you on Facebook, please say hello. As you can see, my hair is in its raw form, so it's really curly today. Natural curls. Crazy my hair is. One day it's straight, the next day it's curly. I don't understand what's going on. I just let it be. So let's get started. I am really wanted to get into this integral life practice. This book is really awesome. I like it because, again, like I said, it's very basic. It's an easy way to engage. Sort of what I talk about here on Spirit and Coffee is like that there's no right, wrong, good, bad way of doing things. There's just your way. And your way is equally good as any other way. If you are getting closer to your divine calling, to that inner essence that wants to be magnified or experienced or expressed in the world. So the integrals framework, which is really cool, it has a spirit module. And I like that because people are like, well, what's spirit? What does it mean? So they have their own way of defining it, but they teach people or they give this opportunity for people to connect into their higher connection to the divine or consciousness or whatever you want to call it, to that thing, that bigger part of us. So what I like, so I'm going to read a couple. So the spirit module of ILP focuses on what we might call the essential spirituality, which is to say the core teachings, injunctions, and practices derived from ancient wisdom traditions, plus the insight of offered by modernity. I can't say the word. Oh dear Lord. Postmodern modernity. Modernity. I'm laughing at myself. I can't say the word. It's okay. And the AQAL framework. Modernity. Modernity. Oh, this is gonna be bloopers. I like how you're laughing, Linga. I hope you're laughing really loud. I crack myself up sometimes. I laugh at myself. So life is too short, right? You gotta have fun with it. If I can't say something, I don't pretend to know. And sometimes I say stuff and I'm like, no, that's not correct. What am I talking about? Okay, and I just laugh at myself because it's funny. Okay, this does not confine us to any specific form of practice. It's not that we must meditate in a certain way or pray or even believe in God. But the framework confronts us with the fact that we must practice or engage in certain activities to gain access to certain experiences, which I love. It confronts us that we must practice and engage in certain activities to engage in certain experiences. That is beautiful. That right there is beautiful, right? So some people, because I use the word God, right, and that triggers some people, and I understand why. There's a lot of misconception about the word God, and so most people believe that God, if I use that term, is perhaps talking about Christianity or Catholicism, or it's a religious term, and so there's a lot of associations and maybe even trauma that comes up with that particular word. I just use it as a blank term because really, honestly, can we label something that we do not truly fully know completely? We do, but we don't. It's in us, but it's not us. It's only a part of us, if that makes sense. So that gets into all the interesting parts that we always talk about. But in order for us to have these experiences, and I love that, is that you don't have to use the word God, but in order to experience abundance, in order to have the experience of bliss or euphoria or of whatever it is that we want, there's certain activities that we need to engage in so that we can have that. Okay. and perceptions and dimensions of awareness. Okay, so it goes on further. So I should have read the rest of it too. So, but the framework confronts us with the fact that we must practice or engage in certain activities to gain access to certain experiences, perceptions, and dimensions of awareness. And I like that, right? The dimensions of awareness, right? So, like even with Lingo, right? We've talked about sort of how do we connect into our divine self or this inner essence. And so oftentimes, as I had talked about addiction at one point, when we talk about addiction, I believe that people are just wanting to experience God. And again, that altered dimension, whatever you want to call it, the thing that's greater than us, something that's beyond us, right? So again, we have to cultivate those experiences. We have to be able to connect into it in a way to have those experiences. Otherwise, well, we could become pessimistic, and that's okay to be pessimistic, and it's okay to say that I don't believe in these things, because sometimes people will say that, but you're getting a result by that. And so for me, it's if you looked at life this way, and this is what I say to people, you don't have to believe. But what is it going to hurt you to believe? Or is it going to help you to believe in something greater, grander, whatever it is, and that you're a part of it? Because the result that shows up when we do that is greater than if we don't. So why wouldn't you? Why would you just say, no, I'm just going to be, it's almost like I'm going to be stubborn and show you that it doesn't exist. Why? Does it matter? I mean, the fact that we're talking about means it exists, right? So that allows us to have the experience, right, that those things cultivate when we believe in something greater than us. We cultivate this experience and perception and way of looking at the world that maybe others won't be able to see. It's kind of cool. It's kind of like a secret maybe for people who who decide to, and others who don't. They're just trying to understand how this person can see things. Well, maybe they just believe and they're just having faith in it, right? And they're allowing themselves to just be free and open to that, so that they can have the experience of altered consciousness and living in higher dimensions. Is another way to look at it, right? Especially for those who are like on the edge of like, I don't know if this is something I want to believe. But in order to have the experience, you have to have some sort of perception around it in order to experience it. Totally makes sense. Okay, so it informs, empowers us to design our practices in a way that is personalized, relevant, and effective. The spirit module allows us to discern important patterns of spirituality by using the key AQL distinctions. AQL distinctions. So states of spiritual awareness, which come and go, versus stages of spiritual attainment, which can be experienced in more permanent fashion. So it's almost like I was talking to my professor the other day. My professor, it's really kind of cool because this right here, the spiritual awareness, which comes and goes, versus the stages of spiritual attainment, which can be experienced more permanent fashion. So if we looked at it from the perspective of our traits and states of mind, which I like, and this kind of connects with it too. It's pretty cool when you think about it. Now that I'm talking about it, is the connection to the two, our states and traits of mind. So let's just kind of talk about the cognitive piece. We have traits. Now the traits are more permanent, right? They're things that are more kind of like our personality, kind of what we lean towards more than the other. That's our traits. And our states of mind are fleeting, right? One is fleeting and one is permanent. The fleeting ones are the states of mind. So if something comes in and it sort of shakes us up a little bit, our state of conscious, our state of mind will determine how we're going to deal with the specific challenge, right? And the challenge that's coming into us. And so if we are a more, let's say our traits are more positive, that we deal with life in a more positive, optimistic perspective. When that pressure comes in, our tolerance level's high, so we're able to handle it a little bit more. Now, the opposite is true. If you're someone whose tolerance is low and something negative comes in and you don't have a structure for positive reinforcement, you're going to end up being angry or pissed off or whatever, and you're going to respond in a way. React is what they say, not respond, react. And you're going to react by maybe punching somebody or whatever it is. Okay, I haven't figured out my response and react as I'm driving in traffic. I always talk about that. Something, my whole psyche changes when I get onto the road. I become a whole new individual. Start yelling at people. It's funny. I mean, I'm not harming anybody, but I just, I yell in my car by myself. Nobody knows I'm doing it but me. Okay, regardless. So if we saw it from that perspective, we can say that the spiritual stage, the states of spiritual awareness come and go. So they're not permanent. They're just kind of fleeting, okay? And so some people, next podcast, you driving and ranting. I know. Could you imagine that, Linga? That'd be hilarious. I'd be like, who is this girl? I did not picture her this way. I'll be like, yeah, that's me. I accept it fully. It is. It's part of who I am. Look at this idiot. What are they doing? They're cutting that person off. That's me in the car. It's funny. My nephew's like, Auntie, I'm like, watch when you get on the road. You're going to see it. You're going to understand what I'm talking about. So states of spiritual awareness, again, are fleeting, where perhaps one day we have this huge connection and then it just leaves. But in order to attain spiritual, or the stages of spiritual attainment, which are the permanent things that we can connect into, those are the things that are like long lasting, right? And not just fleeting. Now, the addiction, I believe in the fleeting part of it, is that we want that instant gratification, perhaps, which we know doesn't work. Instant gratification doesn't work, right? At the end of the day, we still are not satiated when that happens. And that's part of the addictions that we have too, right? We want it quickly. We want it to feel good really fast, but then it goes away. And there's tons of studies on this, right? How people react with reward systems and stuff like that. If you reward somebody right away, there's that instant gratification, but it's not long lasting and permanent. But if you hinder the reward for a while, then give the reward, then that state of pleasure or bliss lasts longer and it stays around for a longer period of time. So we're sort of building that muscle to stay around longer, right? Rather than just fleeting, coming and going. And the same with your spiritual practice. It's how do I connect into it so that it's not fleeting, but that I can sustain a permanent state of being. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. I hope that it makes sense to you. Okay. So worldviews. Now, worldviews and development waves and how they influence our understanding of the ultimate. So worldviews can shift and change. Now, worldviews, really interesting with worldviews because we go through different states of consciousness as a society, right? It's like cultural consciousness, maybe, or how we view the world. And for us to be able to view the world from different perspectives or different worldviews, we have to be able to connect into sort of this spiritual understanding because that's a part of the story and awareness. The spiritual line of intelligence and level within. And then we have our first, second, and third person perspectives on of as spirit. So spiritual practices in all three bodies, gross, subtle, and causal. So when we looked at the practices for our spiritual life, we can look at our body and say, what are my practices? And if spiritual is not the word you want to use, that's fine. The essence of who you are could be another way to look at it. But again, when we're looking at it, it's allowing us to tap into that authentic self of who we are. Who are we authentically? How do we sort of integrate and connect into this spiritual sense of who we are? the essence, the beingness of us, right? The internal world that most can't see, but it's there. It's inside of us. For this new approach to spirit to be truly integral, it cannot appear out of nowhere. Rather, it must draw upon the great spiritual traditions. And then we have the spiritual traditions of Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Taoism, Judaism, shamanism, in their highest, most conscious, most ethical forms. They had a system already set up, right? The system's already been there. Now, we can add our own practices to engage, but when we look at life and we think about ethics and morals and all those things, I mean, just look at your life. What is ethical to you? What is right to you? Internally knowing. So when you go into these different religious texts, they do have a system that was pure to begin with. That was a system, a process that got turned into, of course, a religion. And that's where the problem happened. But there are practices within each one of these that can help us. Even in Kung Fu, like I do Kung Fu, there are spiritual practices throughout the entire thing. I mean, it is a big spiritual practice and connecting to the body and a ritual of these experiences from nature. So we have it. That's pretty cool. So it's not something we need to reinvent. Like these people understood how to utilize their body to, I want to say transcend the soul, but to be able to connect into source where the flow happens. When you connect into source, there's this flow that starts to happen. That flow allows us to create the most authentic version of who we are. Pretty cool stuff. Consider them in detail, and two things strike you. There are an enormous number of differences between them and a handful of striking similarities. Usually it's the similarities that we're speaking to. Similarities that tell us, right? Sort of it obviously if there's similarities, it's because they're taking the best practices and they're understanding what those are. So there are practices that help us in the body. Think about if we even went into Hinduism or to the text, right? Indian text, they do practices of yoga. Yoga is, it's a spiritual practice, how to breathe properly, right? Kundalini, how to breathe properly. The practices of meditation or prayer or whatever it is. Pretty cool stuff. Okay. So, again, I love this book. I think it's great. When you find a few essential items that virtually all of the world's religions agree on, you probably found something incredibly important about the human condition, or at least as important as, say, a few things in physicists can manage to agree on. What are these spiritual similarities? Notice it would mean, Notice what it would mean if there were a handful of characteristics and regularly reoccur and connect humanity's attempts to know God, and presumably God's correlative attempts to reach the slumbering humanity. So it's like meeting in the middle, right? It's like we come together to meet. There's some really cool practices that they talk about too in doing meditation practices of like the meditation being the four quadrants of the I, the we, the it, the it's, and understanding how to integrate and interconnect those. Okay. These similarities would seem to suggest, among other things, that there are spiritual patterns at work in the universe, at least as far as we can tell, and that these spiritual patterns announce themselves with impressive regularity wherever human hearts and minds attempt to attune themselves to the cosmos. in all its radiant dimensions. So as we open up our hearts and our minds, right, and we start to interconnect, we can feel that connection. So it's almost like meeting God, like at this point, at this ever present space that exists. So it's like you're there, God saying, I'm here, and then you finally meet up and you're able to experience that interconnection, that interlocking. And it's attuning ourselves. So again, if you look at attuning, right? Attuning, that's like you're talking about musical notation there. When we talk about the cosmos, or we talk about like finding that vibration to meet up, we're talking about different ways to connect, and that would be vibrational and frequency, which is why music is such a huge part of our lives, because we can do we could do song baths, we could, hymns. If you notice, Om is a big word. They call it the vibration of the universe. The song of the universe is Om. You know, they'll do that Om, and they'll sit there and they'll do that, and what they're doing is they're meeting up with God, basically. That's what it is. It's like there's that and they're coming together. Notice how music changes the way that you feel internally, because we tune into, right? And then there's that pattern that happens. You know, they found those patterns within, you know, when they put that, I don't remember if it was like dirt or whatever. I've talked about this before. And they play certain tones, and certain patterns actually arise from that. So music is another way to connect in. I'm sure you know that, Linga. Maybe Linga will one day join us on this podcast and sing us some song. How are you doing with your songs, by the way, Linga? Are you still singing? Yeah, you want to do it now? Could you, or is it too late? Are you like ready to go to bed? I would love a song right now. I think it's perfect. You haven't got your guitar in you. Okay, no worries. Um, Perhaps it'll show up one day, and it would be beautiful to just have that. Don't be sorry. It's okay. No worries. I understand. Yes, next time. I love to have Linga sing us some songs, and we can all connect in and listen, and you know, it's that's what music does. It changes and transforms. So, and that's part of the spiritual practices that these ancient traditions use. They use song. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be awesome. I'd absolutely love that. So hopefully you can, next time I'm on, I'll try to get on earlier tomorrow. Hopefully maybe tomorrow you could do it. Um, I've just been so tired lately, you guys. Like, oof, been sleeping. Let me see. I spent all night playing with people at a jam, and it's equivalent, of church. Yes, for some. Yes, amen. Music, right? I could go on all day about how music is so nurturing for the soul. Now it could go the opposite direction too. Um, but music saved my life, right? The music has saved my life. And I don't know if that's the same for you all, but it is part of a spiritual practice. Because it does actually change our moods. It does. It'll change your mood. You know, you sometimes you'll go in and you'll be really sad, and then all of a sudden you hear this music, and all of a sudden your spirits are up, right? You're like, whoa, what happened? um and vice versa. Sometimes you're up and you listen to sad music and you start crying. It's meditative when you play, and there's lots of energy flowing. Absolutely. So music has saved my life, literally saved my life. I When I was little, um I used to go and sit in front of this big radio. We used to have those big radios with the big knobs. And I was like, to me, those knobs were huge because I was just like 3 or 4. And I would sit in front of the radio. That's what I did when I was like 3 or 4. I'd go and I'd listen to music. That's what I did. And I would sit by myself and just listen. And usually it was like Stevie Wonder, right? Or Diana Ross, or the Pointer Sisters, or um, Lionel Richie. Those were the people that were playing on the radio when I was a kid. And I would just sit there and I would listen to all of this music as a little girl. And there was a connection, an understanding, a feeling. I could feel the music and I loved it. And then I started singing and I loved singing. And so, but music is so healing to the soul. So even if your spiritual practice, if you're like, well, I don't know what my spiritual practice, listen to music. Listen to drum. There's drum circles. That's what they used to do to reach these higher states of consciousness. They didn't need to do ayahuasca. They didn't need to do all of these plant induced psychedelics or whatever. They didn't have to do that. When they came, so especially in the Western world, when they came and they started to take the land, and they outlawed drumming for that reason. It was outlawed. They took the drums away. So then they found plant medicine and they found a way. But the reality is you could reach those altered states of consciousness by actually music itself. Music itself has those properties of the connection to God, because vibration and frequency, right? It actually does change and transform the way we are. I totally get that. I've been more high from music than any drug. Amen. It's so awesome. That's why and that's why I love that you do your podcast when you sing. So those of you who don't hear Linga, I don't think you've been on lately though, if I'm correct. Hey Tony. I haven't got a notification, which I am never in a place where I can I barely am in a place where I can hear you and sing, but it's awesome. And so for those of you who don't follow Linga because he does music. And just a good person altogether. How are you, Tony? So music will set you free in some way. And sometimes you become this whole other character. That's what I love about music, right? It's like you become this whole other character. It's like, I don't even know. Hey, what's up, Quadi? Yo, Quadi, what's up? So, flat Earth. So, I'm glad you came here because I was going to start wrapping it up. However, Quadi, if you're on here, please don't leave for a while, at least 2 minutes. At least 2 minutes. So the flat earth. Okay, so important. Remember when I was telling you that I don't pay attention to stuff like that? Not that it's not important, it's just doesn't have an impact on me, but perhaps it might now. And so glad that you're showing up at this point, because a friend of mine, right, is not a conspiracy theorist. I don't like that word conspiracy theory, right? Because I bet you every single person who gets on here has been called a conspiracy theorist. I can almost guarantee that the majority of the people that get on here have been called that, right? And just like raise your hand or say yes if that's the case, or hearts, Tony, because I know that's probably what you've been called. But I can just say that pretty much most people get called that, especially if you're into this kind of spiritual transcendence of the soul, all this kind of stuff, and you're getting on spiritual alchemy. I mean, that's what I teach, spiritual alchemy. I mean, come on, that's like ancient stuff, right? So, and they'll be like, oh, spiritual alchemy. Anyway, so Quadi, I'm going to get to the point here. Is that so? A friend of mine, right, who looks into this stuff, and she's brought it up, and I have my theories about things too, right, and how I see the world, and I just don't really talk about it much. But she showed me a map of the world, and she's a flat earther as well. And she was showing me, and she's like, what do you think about it? I said, well, I don't know. Does it really affect me? I'm not an aerospace person at this point. I mean, I don't know how I would utilize this information, or what does it even mean for me to have this information. But then I had a download, right? And I call them downloads because it's like almost like the connection in the brain, right? That these wires that connect and the information all of a sudden connects, and there's an epiphany, right? It's like an explosion where things start to seem clearer. And so I started to look at this map that she gave me, right? And if the earth was flat, and here's what the earth would look like, soon. And starting to think of where we are in the storyline related to what they call prophecy, which is really just the story being told before it happens, right? That they started to show these land masses that were going to be separated. And I started to think, maybe I need to pay attention. Maybe it's something I need to pay attention to now. Why? Because if we go back to scripture, if we go back to all of these scripts, now I'm not just talking about scripture of the Bible, like there's other Gnostic texts that were taken out. There's other texts that are coming from other places and stuff where they have this vision of the world being separated. And so in that, right, when we talk about that there may be a separation in landmass coming. And if that's the case, that this depiction shows us where we should be, right? If we say that we're God's chosen people, and that we're not chosen, and I don't know how to say it better than what they say it, that we are the ones who choose God, or choose transcendence, or choose spiritual enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, right? That we choose that there will be a place for us, right? And it's an island of refuge, I guess. So this flat earth could have some meaning to me at some point, is what I'm saying. So Quad D, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about it, and what your theories are about it, and why it's so important to you, at least at this point, and if it has anything to do with what the future holds, because that's it. They give us the information for a reason, right? They're trying to tell us something. And I kind of talked about this the other day about like the Simpsons and prophecy. It's not really prophecy. They're just giving us the storyline, the script, and then they play out the script. And that's really it. It's not really that magical. People think it's magic, or they think it's a miracle, and it's really not. They write the script, and they're like, all right, who's going to play this script? And then they go, well, I'm going to play that script. Okay, go play it. And then they're like, ooh, it was on The Simpsons. I'm like, yeah, because they wrote the script. Oh, sorry. I don't know what happened here. Resume. And it's picking up what I'm saying. Okay, so let's see. It's very important. Okay, I recently heard about a tribal custom they do in Papua New Guinea, where they play the same drum rhythm for days. Yes, and to attempt to reach transcendental states. Yes, the Native Americans do drum ceremony here as well, and so drum ceremony is something that's done here and all over the place. Just so you know, Linga. In New Mexico, just do some research and you'll see that tribes still do that. And so it's crazy days and weeks. Yes, yes, and that's what they do here. Tribal communities. Tony, did you leave? Or are you still on here? Facebook picked up something I said, or Google didn't like that I was talking about flat earth stuff. And it's kind of funny because it's like, my friends like, have they ever like took your stuff off? And I'm like, nah, they don't, because I have ways of talking about it without getting in trouble or put in jail. um, which is funny. So the Google devil is listening. Yeah. Google's listening, and that's okay. I'm not one of those people who freaks out about being listened to, because I'm was put on this earth to talk the truth and say the truth, and that's my truth, and to teach people how to speak their truth. So that's why I'm here. And That was the intention of all of this, right? So that people can open up their hearts and their minds to remember who they are. When we start to open up our hearts and our minds, remember who we are, right? They cannot take the power away from us. We blindly give power away because we're unaware. But when we start to awaken and become aware, and we know who we are, there's nothing that they can do. They can't take that away from us, right? And all of these individuals, right, that have come to the earth to leave a message, right? We are messengers of the divine. And those messengers come for a purpose, right? And the purpose is to what? Is to remind people who they are, that they're powerful. And when you remember, and if you look at all the teachers, if you looked at all the great teachers, right? They said the same thing. When you know who you are, right? When you know who you are, they can't take anything away from you. There's nothing to take. And they have no power over you. So it's pretty cool. So that's why I do these things and I broadcast them live. And I can be as far reach as I can because hopefully there's a trigger in one individual. It just takes one individual to find that trigger. And then boom, it opens up. And then boom, things start to shift and change. Because all of a sudden you're like, I remember who I am. Oh my God. That's the point. The point is to wake up. Wake up and remember who you are. So, and as we do that, right, there's a bunch of different ways that we could approach life and see it, right? Like, for instance, the flat earth. And I know that you're saying, Kwadi, that it's very important. So I would like to know, everyone has to wake up. Yes, they must wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. I've been saying this for a long while, my whole life. Wake up, people. Get out of that hypnosis. Let's go. You're a badass. Wake up. You're a badass. You have so much to offer. Let's go. Get up, get going. You know, we're in a spiritual warfare. We don't have time. We need our warriors to get up, wake up, remember who they are, stand firm in who they are. And of course, you're going to get backlash. I get backlash all the time. I don't care. I'm like, I know who I am. Doesn't matter to me. I know who I am. They could come and stand in front of me and I know who I am. They can't take that away from me. They can take my arms and my legs and my eyes and everything else, but they can't take that away. Same with you. So the flat earth, and I don't know if you're still on here, Kwadi, tell us why it's important. Can you give us some, why you feel it's important? Or you can email me. I'm interested to know now. Whereas before, it wasn't really in my mind because I had no need for the information at the time. And I had to put other things in my mind that seemed that, you know, like for me, I work through God. Like God gives me a message. It's like, girlfriend, this is what you're doing. And I'm like, yes, I'm on it. This is something that's coming up now. And because it's coming up, now I need to understand why I need to know it. What is it that I need to know about this information that can help? Okay. It's a part of the deception. Yes. Okay. I get that. But beyond that, why is it important to know? So we know that they deceive us, right? We understand that. We know that deception and misdirection is happening all the time, especially in spiritual alchemy. So alchemy itself, there were specific texts taken out of, right? And that were hidden. They call it the hidden texts, right? And even in the Bible, right? The Bible doesn't have all the stories. They took text out specifically for a purpose because they wanted to misdirect us. So that's been happening forever. So, but what part of the deception, like what is important for us to know that we've been deceived on? Like we know that that's deception if it's the truth. But what does us knowing the truth going to help us you? Okay, if you don't know where you are, how will you know where you came from and where you are going? Okay. Okay, I like that idea. I can dig on that one. Let's see, the Book of Enoch. I was a flat earther. It's very interesting, the Book of Enoch. Okay. Um I was a flat earther. So are you was a flat earther? You still are, Tony, a flat earther. Okay, so if you don't know who you are, okay, so I'm what I'm gonna do about this flat earth thing, right? Is I'm really gonna contemplate it because that's what I do. I'll go do my little research and all that kind of stuff and figure out what is the message that I feel God is giving me from this information. And that's how I do it. And I apply it to my life. And then I talk about it. And I talk about it in a way that more individuals can sort of understand why it would be important to look at it. Not that they have to believe it, but why it's important to look at it. Why is it important to understand this information? Why, what is it going to do, and why is it important? So that's what I do with the information that I get in. So look at the podcast. Okay, do you have anything to read? I'm more of a reader than I am a listener to podcasts, to be honest with you, even though I do all this talking. um, it's just about perception. Okay. So okay, I like that, Linga. Thank you. And so thank you guys for engaging in this conversation because for me, okay, so perception is important too. So if we look at this, okay, here, I'm going to put this together really quick. I don't know a whole lot about the theory. I mean, I understand the theory of the flat earth, like Antarctica, they've cut it off. We're in a globe, we're on a flat surface, we're in a petri dish or whatever. They're looking at us, all that kind of stuff. Okay. But um, because it's not physically plausible. The Greatest Light on Earth by, okay, okay. Thank you. I'll take a look at that book and hopefully I can read it in between all the other books I have to read for my master's program, which is like I'm reading 6 books at once, which is kind of crazy. And I don't even, I can't even keep up. Okay. But really important. Okay. So here's the deal. Here's what I'm going to talk about. So flat earthers, ooh, if you're excited about this. Okay. Here's what I'm going to talk about. The perception. Now, here's the deal. I like it what you said that if you don't know where you are, where you came from, and then Linga said perception. And for here's what I've concluded just by this tiny little conversation and knowing who I am, right? And knowing what's happening in the world. We are in a transition from Pisces to Aquarius, right? We're in a new era. And this era is an opportunity to connect into and transcend the soul in order for us to purify our soul back into the greatness of God or whatever you want to call it, the universal. Okay, cool. So if we're at this stage of evolution in our spiritual awakening and interconnection, then perception is really critical. Perception is needed in order for us to see where the lies are. Okay. And we talk about the lies. Now, in the Bible, it says itself, right, that there is a time where there won't be ears to hear, or, they won't hear the message. No matter what you say, no matter how you say it, they're not going to see it, they're not going to hear it. It doesn't make them wrong, it doesn't make them bad, and it doesn't make them evil. It just means it's not time for them, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. What I think, that's reincarnation, which I talked about before. I think they come back to rework it out, to refigure it out. But for those with ears to hear and eyes to see, that if we understand the misdirection that is happening in everything that is being taught to us and we see it, then we know how to apply it to our internal world, into our life, so that we can then get closer to that transcendence. So if the lie changes our perception about how we engage the world and the experience of the world, and it sort of opens up our consciousness so that we can actually transcend, then it's critical to understand. Okay. So if that is the case, right, then that information would be important for those individuals because there's some message there for them to understand and unlock. Here's the deal. In the book of, not the book of Enoch, that's not the book I'm talking about. There's a book called The Keys of Enoch. Okay? The Keys of Enoch open up the keys of perception. Keys of the conscious and unconscious mind, not the book of Enoch, the Keys of Enoch. Okay, different. Now, that book opens up the keys. So, if this is another key that opens up your perception so that you can expand your consciousness, then it's worth it. If it doesn't, it may be that you don't have the ears to see, or the ears to hear, and the eyes to see, the ears to hear. I keep saying that, ears to see. Okay, so flat earth appears to be a feeble attempt to redefine our current perception of reality. I don't mind the process of discovery, but there are some things that have reasonably hard evidence. Flat earth is red herring for enlightenment. Okay, thank you, Linga. Absolutely the opposite, Linga. Okay, good. So there you go. Now we have this dialogue between two individuals that see the perceptive world in a different place. Now, I don't know. I can't say that I'm going one way or another on this particular topic. What I'm saying is, if either one way or the other is expanding your consciousness, is it hindering your consciousness, or is it expanding your consciousness? Is it supporting you and connecting to your divine birthright, or is it hindering you from actually living into your divine birthright? That's the question. Does it matter if it's true per se? As long as it's true to you. And it's okay either way. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay, dude, I'll look into it again. Awesome. The zodiac works perfectly on a flat, stationary Earth and makes no sense on a spinning ball. Awesome. Cool. So there's, again, I know Quad D, this has always been a point of topic for you, and it's been coming up into my world view. So I'm going to probably start taking a look and nerd out to it. So what I do is take a look at these subjects and say, well, how is this going to help me? Now, in my ability to look at this and do this and have some critical thinking behind it from the construct of my internal understanding of the world, that I will have some sort of analysis and some sort of understanding around it and see how it might play out in the world. Okay. I have the ways that I see the world, but my perception is not 100% true. It's my truth, but it doesn't mean it's true for you. So if this particular piece of information is part of the puzzle that needs to be, flushed out and looked at, then I think it's important to look at. So I'm going to look at it. That's what I'm telling you. I woke up at the deep end and worked my way backwards. Others start at the shallow end of truth. Okay. Well, okay. So Quad D, tell me what you mean by the shallow end of truth. The only truth is your truth, which is, did you start internally? Because for you to understand the deep truth would be to understand yourself. To know thyself is the deepest truth we could ever know. Like, who are you? That question, who are you? 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 I am that I am. Now, the I am, okay, that's great. Now what? I am in this physical time space, what? How do you experience the I am? So again, I am, it's beautiful to say I am, but you're not just I am, because you're not just being. You're an actual physical thing that is a doing. So you are an I am, but you're also a doing too. So is your doing matching the I am? And that's another question. And that's why this is the practical use of esoteric wisdom, because it's not just the wisdom of I am. We can talk about the I am for sure. Okay. But how we create in the physical world, right, speaks to the authentic I am, because I am is just a state of being. Then there's this I am what in this world. You can't just transcend by sitting there and saying, I am, 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 I am. You could, but what would end up happening if you just sit there in the state of being is that you would die because you have to eat, which is fine if you want to do that. But there's a connection between the I am and the doing, the being and the doing. So we don't just be, because you wouldn't be a lot, you wouldn't be alive. You eat. So there's a doing there. You drink water. So there's a doing there. You're talking and communicating. So there's a doing there. So yes, you are. Okay. So you know that you are the I am. Now what? So how does this flat earth information matter if you are I am? That means you wouldn't care. You wouldn't even give two shits about the flat earth. You would just sit there being. Doesn't matter, but it does. So again, we're looking at the both and, right? It's the both and. How do we marry the two together, right? And find the ebb and flow in this three-dimensional time space to transcend. We still got to work things out. And this world, this place that we're occupying as human flesh is not the easiest thing to work through. But as we get closer to knowing who we are and playing that out in this physical world, right, we start to create. We become the creators of our own unique world and perception. And so if this perception of understanding the flat earth is supporting you in reaching, I am aware and awake, I care for everyone, and I speak out. That's awesome. Beautiful. Love it. And that's important, right? Awareness is important. So and then the flat earth, like I was saying, like what is the significance of understanding this information? How is it going to expand consciousness? How is it going to expand our understanding of our internal truth and connection to the space that we occupy? Really, I mean, those are valid questions, right? To ask yourself. And that's what I will be asking myself, because I'm going to take the journey and I'll tell you, Quad D, what I come up with. I'm glad that you come on here. Of course, you came on here. It's obvious that that information keeps coming to me. And so now it's like, just keeps coming to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm listening, God. What do you want me to know about this information? I understand. I got to know something about it. And so I will dive into trying to at least comprehend it from my worldview, but listening to other worldviews as well, you know? So, so there we go. So I'll look into that. Hopefully I can get my hands on those books and take a look and read a little bit about it. If there's any online sources, please share them with me. I see both sides. If you see flat earther view, you will understand. So there's like a both and perception and understanding both. It can be, you can't be shown flat earth. You have to find it yourself. Oh, okay. Well, if I don't have to find it, if I'm living on it, I'm here on it. I'm actually planted on it. Little joke for you, Quaddy. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I want to find. I mean, it's coming to me. So, like I said, I work opposite. I don't go searching for stuff. God shows me stuff and says, pay attention. And then I do. And then there you go. It is what it is. And however it might help me in my journey, I will share it with you. And maybe it'll help you in your journey, and maybe it won't. I don't know. We shall see. We shall see as we continue the saga of going down the rabbit hole. Um, but again, if I'm on a petri dish, well, then I'm on a petri dish. If I'm bacteria that's been cultivated by the alien race and they're like, look, you're an experiment, yeah, but I'm pretty smart experiment. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, so kind of funny. All right, so thank you guys for sharing. Thanks for Kwadi for sharing. Thank you, Linga, for sharing. Tony, thank you for sharing. I hope you have an amazing, fantastical day. And I will be seeing you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Thank you guys so much. Love you, love you, love you. And Linga, please come sing if you can. I would love to hear your songs. Okay. Love you guys. Bye bye.